If you're looking for a new way to support the podcast, check out Dubby.gg, an energy supplement company trying to make a difference. There, you can use code SIDEMISSION for 10% off your order. Thank you to Dubby for sponsoring this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. I, like always, am your host, Rusty Ellis, joined by the boys, Kyle Lynch and Matt Beck. And today, we're starting a brand new series because, as I'm sure you all have seen by now, there's a new video game adaptation live series out now, as Fallout has created quite a lot of conversation. It's been a high quality show that I think all three of us are very, very happy with so far. This is our review of episode 1 of the series, and Kyle, just simply put, and I know we're hopping right in, and normally there's a little bit of a lead up, but I don't really feel like wasting time. This show had me hooked 4 or 5 minutes in. This show gets off to a great start.
Yeah, it really does. I was really excited to kind of see everything from the games come to life, and they give you that novelty for a bit, but man, I mean, it hits fast. Because I love the way that they started this, showing before the war, and it was just kind of this low key rich person's birthday party for his kid, and Walton Goggins' character is they're it's kind of like this entertainer. He's talking to his daughter a little bit about all this discourse surrounding the war and what they think is going to happen. And then, all of a sudden, the bombs just start dropping. And that's when I was hooked, because the way that they did the zoom out when, Walton Goggins' character gets on his horse and they start riding off, and you see just not one nuke going off, but 2, then 3, and it's just, it really sets that tone almost instantly, and there's not a lot of music happening, it's just kind of like a static buildup, but it was so, like, hair-raising. It was awesome. I really, really enjoyed the way that they started this off, and I also like that it doesn't look cheesy with the CGI. There's like one shot I can think of, but for the most part, they did pretty good with the special effects.
I loved the build up to the bombs going off as well, because at some point, Walton Goggins is taking photos with he's taking photos with the kids and the horse that he's brought and whatever, and the dads jokingly ask him to, like, oh, just give us a thumbs up, and we have no idea what they're talking about, and then we find out that obviously Walton Goggins' character was in the military at one point, and as that's a training thing, and he tells his daughter, because she asks him, what does that mean? And he goes, well, when you see a cloud, if you hold your thumb up to it, the cloud's not bigger than your thumb, run for the hills. And then this was one of my favorite lines of the first episode. She goes, what if it's bigger than your thumb? And he goes, don't bother running. And the writers, I thought they cooked with that early line. And then I think, like you said, Kyle, the reaction of that initial bomb dropping, like that initial like kind of breathless look on his daughter's face of, oh my God, that's a nuclear explosion. And you kind of just see it in the reflection of the window behind her. It doesn't actually show you the explosion. I thought that was a great cinematic shot that I thought the director and the cinematographers behind the first episode did a great job with that. Again, it sets the tone so well. And I want to praise this, and then I'll get to Matt. I love, finally, that someone figured out how to write a Walton Goggins character, because it doesn't feel like Walton Goggins is portraying himself. And it feels like that everything that he's in, he's playing himself. He's not really playing a character. He's more or less just, this is what Walton Goggins would be like if you stumbled across him in a bar on Friday night. And I like that this character actually has a little bit of depth. So excited to see where that goes further in the series for sure, because as we get further into this episode, obviously his character becomes really interesting. Matt, what about you? When you look at how this show starts and how quickly it gets us into the vault, I feel like we talk about this a lot, that in games that are post-apocalyptic, we see a lot of where man is, where the world is, after everything has fallen. I like that we got to see the downfall of society happen in real time.
I definitely agree with that. This they started off very strongly. I like the fact that we do get a look into just like the current settings, like in the modern era, before the nukes going off. As we're talking about Grogan's character, he's just, he dresses up as a cowboy and he has his daughter with him at this kid's birthday party. And I think that the setting was really well done. The dialogue was great. I like the fact that the parents were just like ragging on him about just the dumbest stuff. Like, I mean, some of it didn't really make sense to me, but I also like the fact that we kind of got a reference to the game where the kids were watching the TV, Grognak the Barbarian, which is something that if you played a Fallout game, you know about. So here and there, that's one thing to look out for. And these shows are the Easter eggs. I always enjoy when I'm able to spot one. Also like the fact that in the chaos of everything, you just have Grogan's character and his daughter just getting up on the horse to get away, and then you see like all of the parents just like trying to hop up in their cars and drive away from that. But the thing is, you can't drive away from something like this. Like, if you put a Fallout game, you know what this leads up to, and I think that led up to the next section with the vault really well.
Yeah, and I love that. I thought that everything in the vault, when we meet Lucy, played by Ella Purnell, who is, again, a real highlight of this show for me. I think Ella Purnell portrays this character very, very well. Very well written, very well acted. We meet Lucy in the vault, and again, I like how they portrayed the vault and life within it, because
Yes.
we see the Fallout games a lot of times in the vault. We more or less see like things going wrong, and make no mistake, we see things go very wrong for this vault. But again, I always kind of wonder, how did we get there? How did we get to this point? Like in Fallout 4, for example, you wake up after over 100 years. I believe after over, to Kyle, you can correct me wrong, I believe it's after over 200 years actually in Fallout 4 when your character wakes up. And you more or less have to just piece together what happened. There's no real, like, you're not really told what's happened. You kind of have to figure it out as you go. Here, you see the downfall of this vault. Before you get there, though, you see what life is like inside the vault. And Kyle, again, I liked it. I liked how they portrayed it, about how different vaults offer different aspects of life. Some are more based on crops. Others are based on more manufacturing needs and stuff like that. Vaults will often, pair up a man and a woman together to mate, essentially, to keep the human race alive. I thought, Kyle, it was a very interesting portrayal of what life inside the vault would look like.
Yes, I think that this was the best I could have hoped for. Set production wise, I think, everybody's portrayal of everyday vault life is awesome. Everybody fits so naturally. And it's goofy because, like, you're watching the show. It's so, I think unrealistic, but you can't help but almost feel like at home in this vault. It feels like so natural, and everybody is just kind of in this nice society. They all, work together to do everything, and man, it was so heart-wrenching when they end up getting this trade-off where they are accepting somebody from Vault 32 into Vault 33 to breed with Ella Purnell's character Lucy. And, well, it turns out that these people who came here weren't actually from Vault 32. They were raiders from the outside, and they began slaughtering everybody. It was brutal. They do not hold back in this show. It was wild. And that was what really brought me back into oh yeah, I'm watching Fallout. This is not a 90s sitcom by any means. It got brutal pretty quickly, but I think that it was such a great introduction to the Fallout universe of how it gave you that false sense of security right at the beginning and snatched it so fast. They end up kidnapping Lucy's dad, blowing up one of the doors to Vault 32, and escaping. leaving Lucy and quite a few other Vault Dwellers alive. But it looks like they were mainly there to kidnap Lucy's dad, and it was such a brutal scene. I mean, I really can't get over how it was just so shocking. I think, but definitely perfectly executed.
Yeah, I think that it goes to show that, it's life in the apocalypse. It looks the life in the vault. I found myself sitting there going, this looks a little too perfect. And then before too long, it doesn't take very long at all. It goes very wrong. But, I will say that like violence in media is so interesting because if it's done properly, like I think this show has done it so far, I think that violence is a very powerful tool. A very powerful tool in storytelling, especially how they portrayed this and how they shot this, where, there's kind of that old-timey music playing in the background, and it's like this music doesn't really fit what's going on screen, but yet in a Fallout setting, it fits almost perfectly. And I loved that. I loved kind of, some of the shots are slowed down in slow motion. Some of them are going in normal speed. And they show like the Vault Dwellers trying to fight back, but the problem is they've been in this setting for so long, they've become almost desensitized to the point where they've not had to fight to survive. Whereas these raiders, everything they do is fighting to survive. So again, it's a scene and a really a long part of this episode that really stands out when you look at just how good this opening episode is. We are also, Matt, introduced to the Brotherhood of Steel for the first time. And for those who have not played the game, the Brotherhood of Steel, they're not a great group. There's a certain R word I could call them, but I don't want to get us in trouble on this podcast because let's just say there's a lot of people and things they don't like in the games specifically, and I'm sure that will probably be the case here. But it is also here where we are introduced to Maximus, another character, this one played by Aaron Clifton Moten. And while Maximus early on has not been my favorite part of this show, I think that it's not really the actor's fault. It's not Aaron Clifton Moten's fault. I think that a lot of it is maybe this is just the kind of character they're trying to portray him as. But it's a very interesting setup, Matt, to see how the Brotherhood of Steel, how they essentially train these, I want to say cadets, how they essentially train them and prepare them to be squires to the actual Brotherhood members that wear the armor. And it's a really interesting, again, it's something that I don't think we've had much in the past, at least not in my experience with Fallout, which, don't shoot me, fans. I've played Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, unfortunately. So don't get mad at me too much. That's my experience with Fallout. But again, I like it's a perspective we've not seen, Matt. And again, I like that. They're building this atmosphere, this world, and I think they're doing a great job of that.
Yeah, honestly, with the introduction of Maximus, I really like the fact that the three primary characters that we're getting with Hooper, Lucy, and Maximus, each having from their own, hailing from their own factions, just like in the actual game itself. Whereas with Lucy is a Vault Dweller, Hooper is, at this point.
You mean Cooper?
Well, Cooper, yes, my apologies. I don't know. Cooper, we haven't been reintroduced to him yet in this setting, but Maximus being part of one of the most popular, factions in Fallout, being the Brotherhood of Steel. I like that, with each introduction of these characters, we also get a look into those factions, just like we do in the games. And it follows it really well. Like, I like the fact that Maximus being so low in the ranks is, he's basically treated like a scrub, just, push him around and all that stuff. And the flashback to him when he sees the T-60s for the first time on the set is, him as a child being rescued by, someone, a Brotherhood of Steel in the power armor. And that's something that sticks with him. And that's why he looks up to them and why, it is his goal in life to get to that point. And then I really like the development that they gave him. We introduced to his friend Dane, and then Dane ends up getting the rank that he's going to go to as a squire. But then Dane ends up getting injured by a razor being put in their boot, and then he gets dragged away with a bag over his head. And then, it goes on to the next part. But I think they did a great job setting up Maximus. We know what his goal is. We don't quite know exactly where it's going to lead him to, but I do think that they set the tone for his character really well.
I have a prediction that I want to get out for this episode, and I want this to be out there in the ether. I have not finished the show. It is my bold prediction. I think Maximus is going to be a synth. And I think that the reason why the Brotherhood doesn't like him all that much is because the Brotherhood of Steel is known for not liking synths. They cannot stand the synths. That's their whole thing. And the way his character acts and his I don't want to say voice acted, is acted and portrayed, it's very emotionless and almost robotic. It may be kind of a wild prediction to say, oh, he's a synth. But I think that would actually be a really, really cool twist if that was the case. That's, again, just my prediction here. But Kyle, we talk about how brutal this show is. Violence was, dude. The scene with Dane and when you see the razor blade in the boot, oh boy, that is brutal.
That was pretty nasty. I'm not gonna lie. Like, they're like hand and feet stuff. Like, people getting, like, their fingers cut off or, like, toes cut off. Oh, dude, I don't know what it is about seeing that in movies, but that shit just gets to me. It's just so brutal, dude. That, like, I mean, if somebody gets their arm cut off, it's like, whatever. I saw that in Star Wars, but damn, dude. I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, I was checking my shoes for days after watching that episode because that's just so traumatizing, bro. I do not want to stick my foot into a razor blade. I want to know who did it. And
I don't think it was Maximus. They blame Maximus, but I don't think it was him.
This is not a spoiler, but I finished the show and they never said who did it, so that's kind of weird. I don't know if we're just supposed to assume that Maximus did it. I mean, I don't know if that just wasn't clear to me, but they never clarified really. So
yeah.
But I think that it was a very interesting twist that now Maximus is going to be a squire in place of Dane. Pretty convenient, but the way that they interrogated him really showed just how deep the brainwashing goes with the Brotherhood, because he was talking about how he's ready to give his life just to prove his own innocence right then and there, if it meant that it helped the Brotherhood. That's how devoted he is to them. Also, I really like that Maximus is the kid in the fridge, because that was a quest in one of the games that you find this kid in the fridge, except you take him back to his parents, and I guess that didn't happen in this. But I gotta say, after watching, like Twisted Metal, I appreciate how in your face the references were. I think they were funny. However, this show has done the video game references so
very
tastefully.
Subtle.
Yes, they
very,
are
very
like
subtle.
Twisted Metal did not shy away from it at all. I mean, the very first episode, they put a copy of the game on the windshield. Like, I mean, it was very in your face, and to see, almost the complete opposite, I love this so much more, because it speaks out to people who have played the games, because, they're constantly doing the Leonardo meme, pointing at the TV, looking at the girlfriend, saying, I know what that is. Let me tell you about that. Dude, because it's done so well. I also think, like I said earlier, the way that they've done a lot of these special effects, the power armor especially, it doesn't look cheesy. It doesn't look shitty. I was praying to God that we did not get shitty CGI in this show, because there's going to have to be quite a bit. You can only do so much practical, but the power armor actually looks really good, and I think that, it's really fun seeing this come to life. Now, let's talk about the ghoul.
Now, this is my favorite part of the show so far, is Walton Goggins being the ghoul. Cooper is discovered as the ghoul, and again, I hinted at it earlier, Kyle and Matt as well. I hinted at this. I love that we're finally see Walton Goggins playing a character and not playing himself. I think Walton Goggins is a really good actor, and I think that he knows how to act. And I think the problem is people have struggled for his entire career to write him into a character. This might have been the role he was born to play, because he's been phenomenal in this show so far. And I think that especially the scene that we're introduced to him. Also, side note, I love that Michael T. Williamson, Bubba from Forrest Gump. I love that he is in this show. I love that. I love Michael T. Williamson. I think he's awesome. He may not be, he's probably not a conventional choice for your favorite actor. He's probably nobody's favorite actor outside of his mother. But dude, Michael T. Williamson is just a fun actor and is a great personality to have in a show. And I loved his role in this specific episode. But dude, the Ghoul, Walton Goggins, I loved every bit of it. Like him hamming it up the way he was, I loved every bit of it. And I think he's every equal parts funny as he is badass. And Kyle, I think that's a massive part of this character.
100% it is. And that's honestly, I think, the biggest appeal to him is that he's kind of like an anti-hero. He's not necessarily evil, I wouldn't say, but he also isn't afraid to kill whoever he's got to in order to get what he wants, you know? But I think what really balances that is the humor, the way he goes about it. Like, I love that when they show up to find him, the three guys are talking about how if he's feral, he's going to go after the chicken, and if he goes after the chicken, then they're just going to kill him. But if he doesn't, then he's not feral, right? So they put down the chicken, they dig him up, he comes out of the coffin, and, he starts talking to him, and he looks down, he sees the chicken, he picks it up, and you can see him all tense up. And he's still talking to him about how, it was pretty cool the way that, he said this whole line, and I don't want to butcher it, but you'll have to watch it for yourself, about how, he doesn't do this, for the money. It was cool to see him obliterate these three guys in, 5 seconds, and after they're all dead, the only one still alive is the chicken. He puts it down and lets it go. Dumbest thing ever, but I was like, that's so damn funny, because they came here and they're like, if he's feral, he's gonna get the chicken. He left the chicken alive and killed the guys, but
Yeah.
man, he's so good in this role. I think that this is one of his best, and I hope he's a mainstay for this show, at least for a long time, because I know it's been renewed for season 2. I hope that he stays with this show for a while. It's one of his
absolutely.
best.
Oh yeah.
I think it might be his best period. And I mean, sure, my mind could change, but just spoiler alert for everybody before episode 2, our review for that. He has by far the best action scene, one of the best action scenes in a video game adaptation that I think we've seen in a long time as well in episode 2. I'm excited to talk about that another time, but it feels like we've covered everything. Matt, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we call it an episode?
No, nothing in particular.
Well, fair enough. That was easy. That was an easy enough answer. Go ahead, Kyle.
I actually want to talk about how we got to go back a little bit to Lucy. After everybody got slaughtered and everything, and they took her dad. We did forget to talk about how she actually left the vault. She's the first one of their people to leave the vault because nobody else wanted to go out to find her dad, and her brother Norm said something very interesting about how the reason they don't want to find her dad is because they'll no longer be in control. So now she has to take it upon herself to go out and find her dad, and she leaves the vault and steps out and sees that she's, I believe near the Santa Monica Pier. It's what the big Ferris wheel was. It was really cool to see she's in, California, and I think if you've played the Fallout games, you know that there's a lot of, landmarks that are going to be around the Midwest that, we'll get to see. But the whole reveal of them being just right off the coast, and pretty much their entire vault was, underwater, that was cool as hell. But yeah, I'm excited to see, where she goes as the first person. I'm assuming, kind of the main character, because in the games you're a vault dweller and you leave the vault, so she's the main character per se. But it was something I wanted to go back and talk about because we did skip over that.
Absolutely, and my bad for steering the conversation away from that. That is an important part of it.
No,
Is her obviously leaving the vault, and that's a big part of all the games as well. So it's
Mhm.
certainly interesting watching her kind of adjust to how people live in the world above. It's kind of interesting because it's a different world entirely than the world she's used to, and she's grown up in this serene society that there's no real issues in. You go up top and it is chaos everywhere, and I think they did a great job of depicting that. So anything else, fellas?
I'm good. No,
Well, Matt, we know you're good. I mean, you didn't have anything the first time I asked you, so we're just gonna assume that you're good. But hey, this is gonna be a fun series. We're gonna have a lot of fun. The good thing about all this is 3 video game adaptations we've gotten in a row that are really,
Yes.
really good. And
Yes.
realistically, 4 if you want to go back to the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So, like, it's 4 in a row we've gotten that have been really, really high quality stuff, and I like that. I like that we're getting good live action and animated video game adaptations. I hope it continues. I have full confidence that it will. So be sure to tune in for episode 2 next time, because that is going to do it for this episode of Side Mission. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Side Mission Pod. You can check us out on Facebook as well at Side Mission Podcast. For the boys, for Kyle, for Matt, I'm Rusty. Thanks for listening.